Hi and welcome on Varieties 1 class to a new session in Varieties 1. We are actually still working on the concepts of style and stylistics, but this time we're going to talk about them in relation to one variety of language that is the language of conversation. All right, so we will actually apply um, these stylistic notions on spoken English. We will look at the features that we studied in lecture 1, features of markedness and markedness. We will apply the stylistic analysis framework and its terms of stylistic features and stylistic functions in reference to spoken English. Spoken English, the language of conversation. Spoken English is the language of conversation. Of course, it is normally used to enable people to communicate with each other on everyday life. Therefore, it has its own characteristic features which separates it from written varieties as a particular and unique type of language. Alright, of course, the nature of spoken English is completely different to written its written counterpart. Okay, just think about the Arabic language. The way we speak is completely different from the way we write. So the following analysis investigates these features and their functions in detail with regards to the layout, grammar, vocabulary, phonology, and compares spoken English in relation to its written counterpart. Now, please pause a minute to read the two extracts A and B. So you will find extract A on page 29, while extract B you will find it on page 33. So my students, before actually we begin our actual analysis, I need you please to take up these very important, I would say, directions or instructions that you have to remember every time you perform your stylistic analysis, all right, to any extract, be it spoken or written. So before we proceed our actual analysis to the extracts A and B, please pay attention to the way how the analysis unfolds. All right. So, folks, on the way, actually, we are going through our analysis. Okay, how do we start our analysis? How do we start it? All these details actually counts a lot to the I would say to the quality of your analysis. Don't just start abruptly or just jump in with any feature. No, it has to be very organized, and your analysis should always be well structured. So you are supposed to exactly follow the same pattern of analysis I applied here. Describe all the details and begin your analysis starting with the layout first and then move all the way through the other features. Alright? Remember that every stylistic level should be described and analyzed in a single paragraph. For example, do not analyze punctuation and paragraphing simultaneously in the same paragraph. This is wrong. Instead, analyze each aspect in a separate paragraph. Okay, so paragraphing should be analyzed in a separate paragraph, while punctuation should be also described and analyzed in a single paragraph. Do not forget to support your analysis and your arguments with real examples from the target text, that is, the text to be analyzed stylistically. Why? Because this adds to the credibility of your analysis. Now, when it comes to the layout, if you just like take a look at the two extracts A and B, you will find that that conversations or spoken language in general has no shaped layout of any kind. Okay, so unlike, for example, newspaper articles or legal contracts, they have like a specific kind of shape or structure. Now, for spoken language, it has no fixed layout or no fixed form or structure. There is basically no paragraphs at all. All right, so spoken English in the form of spoken dialogue, which is mostly sporadic with utterances that fall short of complete grammatical sentences in many instances, as the two extracts A and B clearly show. So the layout of each is at random. All right. Um, So, conversation takes the shape of casual and organized dialogue. The utterances of each speaker stand as independent units. There is no organization in terms of topic, amplification, and ending or complete, well constructed ideas. All the ideas or all the utterances are scattered, they are sporadic, but in the end, like, there is of course a kind of meaning and in these utterances, but the way or the shape of spoken language is completely different from its written counterpart. Now, if you go, for example, to page 29, the conversation between a coffee barman and a newspaper seller. Okay, now how the conversation actually unfolds. Look, the man says, "You was a bit busier earlier." Now, the answer of the barman, round about 10. 10 was it? All right, so you see here, now these are just like sporadic utterances. Okay, so we don't actually have like an introduction, an amplification. Oh, now these are just questions and short answers that in the end of the day they make actually sense. Okay. So one more actually important feature in spoken language is capitalization and punctuation. So capitalization and punctuation are also not used because they are written graphological device. Likewise, underlining, italics, bold type, or any other tools used in writing is just unnecessary in spoken English, unless the speaker deliberately points out in conversation. All right. So, for example, in extracts A and B, capitalization is used because the conversation is presented in the written form for analysis. Okay. So, these devices are compensated by the tone of voice in conversation. So, whenever you find any capitalized forms or letters or and maybe words, that actually stands for the tone. Maybe the speaker speaks up and when saying this word or when mentioning that name, or because this maybe word is important for him, so he actually speaks up. Okay, he and we actually use these tricks and techniques like when we when we chat, like in our text messages, that we actually sometimes just capitalize certain words or something for showing like we are speaking up or that we are yelling at someone or that. So this is actually adopted here in the analysis for the sake of showing the tone or trying to monitor the tone of the conversation. As when it comes to titles and subtitles, no titles or subtitles are used in spoken English. Okay, now when we write, for example, an essay, an academic essay, or you have to write, uh, you know, um, a topic about something, we usually actually start with a title, and sometimes we have some subtitles or subheadings. We use them to orient the reader to some important, like for example, functions in the essay. But in spoken English, we don't actually use these because these are also writing devices. So the only possibility of having a title for a piece of conversation is to be determined by the interlocutors, the persons involved in the conversation. So when we speak, sometimes we, even like with friends and so on, we normally end up with a kind of a topic. We may actually count that topic as a title. Okay, sometimes you run into your friend and you find him like driving a new car, then you congratulate him on the new car and you end up talking about cars and so on. So maybe like this could be the title of your conversation, that this conversation is about cars. All right, so uh, also there are no figures, no diagrams or charts or tables or any other graphological devices which are naturally restricted to the medium of writing only. All right, so when we write, for example, an economic report or something, we have to insert some tables or charts. Or sometimes when we write a newspaper article, you have to insert some illustrations or images to, you know, to enhance actually your topic or your article. But when it comes to spoken English or in conversations, we don't have these medium, we don't use them. In fact, the main reason for the absence of the graphological devices of organized writing is that the medium of speech has completely a different layout and different strategies of reference and underlining. All right, so such different layout and strategies are among the principal reasons that separates speech from writing. Now, when it comes to sentence structure in spoken English, usually there are no well formed grammatical sentences in conversation. That is, many sentences do not have subject or the sentence is sadly interrupted without having been completed. There are somehow fragments of sentences, or can be rightly described as minor sentences. In other words, they are not complete sentences but utterances of variable length. But still, in the context of spoken English, these fragments of utterances, they do actually make sense. All right. The ungrammaticality of spoken English results from the following points. All right. So why they are ungrammatical, unlike those written forms? First of all, because we usually have the omission of the subjects, as we have in extract A, line 11 and B line 15. All right, for example, when about 20 to 10, instead of saying I went about 20 to 10. All right, found that in instead of I found that. All right, so English speakers or spoken English is different because of all these features, because of all these aspects. So when it comes to the subject A or I, we don't actually uh, use it in the sense that we know it. We simply omit it. All right. Oh, glad to see you. Happy you're here. I don't have to say I am happy that you're here, or that I am glad that I see you now. All right. So that is one of the characteristics of spoken language. Second, the repetition of the subject. For example, I think, okay, instead of I just think. So we sometimes repeat the subject, especially I, because we use it when we really want some time to reformulate our ideas, or that we are reluctant about something, or that we are hesitant. All right, so we repeat the I. So the subject here is repeated 3 times, which is not allowed in written grammatical sentences. You cannot do this like in the written form. You can never like write I 3 times. Okay, but in spoken English, this is completely normal and natural. Something else, the omission of the object. Okay, so I noticed. So instead of saying I noticed that, okay, for example, did you see what she said? Or did you notice what she, for example, did? So I would say I noticed. I don't have to say I noticed that, all right? So just I noticed. Something else, the wrong subject verb conquered, like in extract A, line A. You was a bit busier earlier instead of you were a bit earlier. You must be surprised by this fact, but English speakers, they don't actually use, the very grammatical English. They would actually use this. You was, okay? You was a bit busier earlier, all right? This doesn't mean that this is wrong, but this is the way how they speak, all right? The misplacing of subject and or the verb, as you have in extract A 11 and B line 27. Yes, my last evening news, it was. Okay, so instead of starting with the subject and then the verb, so it should be yes, it was my last evening news. My digs mate I had, instead of saying I had my digs mate. One more aspect is the separation of subject and verb from complement. For example, round about 10. Round about 10. Pause and silence. Or the, what's his name? You need a basis instead of you need a basis. But we have here some pauses. These little dashes, they stand for pauses. All right, so we have these pauses and they stand for a kind of moments of thinking, moments of reformulating ideas. The eighth aspect is the incompletion of sentences. If there was an English, then we have an interruption here. So instead of saying if there was an English student, so we also have so many interruptions. So most sentences are incomplete. All right. So this is different in written form. And grammatical insertions. I think making this week these coffee parties. Okay. So we have these grammatical insertions. So instead of saying I think making these coffee parties, so we would the person would say, I think making these week, these coffee parties, this happens when we speak. Omission of a grammatical word, like yes, it was the evening news, was the last to go, instead of yes, it was the evening news, which was the last to go. Okay, so the relative pronoun which is omitted and missed. Another aspect is the insertion of parenthetic expressions. For example, in extract A23 or B77, yes, I come by here after that, see after I packed up, instead of these insertions of expressions like see, you know, okay. So I thought somebody that I sort of still know. So sort of is a parenthetic um, expression. Other similar typical examples of parenthetic expressions like I know, you know, I mean, sort of, kind of, okay? We also have repetition of the same grammatical category like in extract B, line 60. You spend the whole of repetition of object, the whole, okay? This is also quite commonplace in conversational English. So these are the most common distinct characteristic of sentence structure in spoken language. Alright, so in the next lecture we will see the function of the and grammatical sentences in conversation. Now your home assignment is that I need you to go to page 86, analyze the given material in terms of sentence structure. Alright, support your analysis with examples from the extract. Try to find any grammatical forms that we have covered today in the lecture. Find the examples where we have the omissions of the subject, or when we have repeated words or insertions or parenthetic expressions. So try to find these and show me in your analysis where they are. All right, so next time we will actually dwelling on their functions in the text. So thank you.